I'd like to call the Finance, Ways and Means Committee to order for February the 9th, 2026. Madam Clerk, please open the board for roll call. And members, if you would, please make sure that you're signed in so that we can take the roll. All right, please be sure to get signed in. Madam Clerk, please take the roll. All right, thank you very much. Members, are there any personal orders or announcements before we do get started this morning? Hearing none and seeing none, we do have a total of 5 budget hearings today. We're going to begin with the Megasite Authority of West Tennessee. So if you all would please make your way to the front. Members, please refer to the dashboard for all presentation documents. And before we begin, without objection, we're going to go out of session. We're out of session. Gentlemen, welcome. Please introduce yourself, and we will control the microphone this morning. So if you would, again, before you speak, just introduce. And then when you see that red light come on, you are ready to begin and proceed. Thank you.
Red light means go, huh?
Red light means go.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Appreciate the time to be here with you this morning. And I just want to update you all on the Megasite Authority and what we have accomplished. We're 4 years old. We've been around for 4 years now, and I think we've done a lot in that time period. As far as the state's commitment to Ford, we have met really all of those commitments. The TCAT that was built on site, that was opened in June of 2024. TDOT has completed its work as far as the road work that Ford needs in their first phase. And the Department of General Services has completed the water and the wastewater treatment plant on site to serve the needs of Ford. We started supplying water to Ford in November of 23, and we started taking sewer in summer of 24. So that's been ongoing for since that time. We've been working hard the past couple of years, I myself with Michael Winston and his crew, as far as setting up the enterprise fund that will account for all the operations of the water and the wastewater treatment plant. We just completed our first fiscal year, that was FY25, and closed those books about a month or so ago. So we're working through all that and working and planning ahead of time as far as the statute that spells out that we're not to operate at a deficit after December of 2026. So working in that direction. Ford is, for the most part, and the suppliers on site have built out their complexes. I'm not really sure exactly where they are with the manufacturing equipment inside their facilities. We continue to work with the State Fire Marshal's Office on certificates of occupancy as Ford, SK, and the suppliers are ready. We're also working with the group, the Tennessee Power Distribution Company, to plan a natural gas peaking plant to be built on site that will serve all of West Tennessee. And we still have about 300 acres that we are currently leasing to a farmer there to put that property to use, but we're working with ECD to find the highest and best use for those 300 acres that are still on the Megasite property. So that's a brief snapshot of really what we have done the past 4 years and where we are today as far as an operation.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Bright, for that update. We do have a couple of folks on the list for questions. Let's begin with Chairman Williams. Chairman Williams, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Director Bright, for being here. I just had a question. Obviously, since our last hearing, Ford has kind of made an announcement that they kind of changed directions as to what automobiles are going to produce there instead of it being a full EV. My question is the relationship between the Megasite Authority and the TCAT, has that relationship changed at all? Has the TCAT purpose changed at all? And has it impacted what curriculum or training they're actually doing there?
Well, in my discussions with the folks at the TCAT, They did pivot a little bit. As I said, they opened up our operations in June of '24 based on the original schedule from Ford to develop their workforce there and to train them basically on the equipment from SK and Ford. So they did take a pivot, knowing that the workforce was not going to be there based on the timing of the EVs and now the combustion engines. But they are doing their best to use the curriculum they have, maybe change that curriculum a little bit to better serve that community for other industry in West Tennessee.
So I think it's important because obviously we made an investment in the TCAP based upon what we thought the work development or workforce development needs were at the time. I guess the other thing that I had a question about, do you know that if the requirements for Ford have changed as it relates to their incentives and jobs, and have we clawed back anything because of the fact they haven't met, or have they met those requirements as it relates to their original agreement?
So the accountability agreement we had with Ford and SK was a 10-year agreement. And I think that may be refined a little bit since SK is going to be the sole owner. But the details, the intent of that accountability agreement, as far as the term and as far as the numbers, that has not changed at all.
So the number of jobs that Ford expected to deliver there are the same. They may be a different job, and the total number of jobs has not changed either.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Next on the list, Chair Lady Moody, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome today. And of course, living there in Tipton County, we're watched the building and with anxiousness, and now we get to see it and are anxious to see it completed. I wanted to ask you about partnering with SK Innovations, and they'll still be a part of the mega site, right?
Yes,
Okay. And are there other prospects that could come to the site now?
Well, as I mentioned, the Tennessee Distribution, they're looking to build a peaking plant on that site right next to the TVA substation. So right north of that property on the east side of State Road 222, we have roughly 300 acres left.
Yes.
Everything on the west side of State Road 222 is all Ford as far as the four leads. So we are working with ECD. We're working with the local economic development, Aaron Stewart and his group, as far as how can we best use that property and put it into production as far as property taxes is concerned.
And I know there's several, I think there were talk of several other supporting companies coming in that would funnel to the truck, the Tennessee truck.
Right.
And so it is exciting to still see the growth and the plans being made for the Tennessee truck plant. Another question for you, since this announcement, when from the beginning, they held several community impact meetings to help prepare the surrounding governments. Can you provide an update on local community preparations?
Well, I'm really not a part of some of those
Okay.
discussions on what's going on the local level. I know we're working with, Mayor Bauer of the city of Stanton as far as
Yes.
helping him with some of those supplier dollars so he can better plan and do some improvements there in the town of Stanton as far as being able to be ready for Ford.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yes,
I know
yes,
they
ma'am.
appreciate it. And members, the Ford team came out when we were out of session. So we were at the TCAT on site, and it is beautiful. It is amazing. And one thing they pointed out to us were all these robots that have the plastic over them because they're waiting for students to be trained to reprogram them to do the gas combustible engine. So they are there, they're ready, and just need the people to come and get trained. But anyway, thank you for being here and for
Yes,
your
ma'am.
information.
All right, thank you. Next on the list, Representative Shaw, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here, Clay. Thank you all. I know Chairman Williams asked about the TCATs. We were there, of course, Clay, you were not there, but we were invited to a meeting, and I think Chairman Faison was at this meeting. Pretty much what the TCATs has to do, I think they've already done that because prior to this, it was going to be battery-operated vehicles. And our TCATs were not going to have a whole lot to do with that in the first place. But so I think what has happened, TCAT has pretty well made the transition that it needs to make sure that the frame of the truck will fit the new model that they're going to make, et cetera, and so forth. I think my question is, has there been a target date to start production at this time, if you know of?
The date that I've heard is 2029 as far as Ford's concerned. Exactly where SK stands in that and the new product that they're going to build, I have not heard.
But is that the beginning of 2029? Are we talking the middle or latter?
No, it's just 2029.
Okay. And I do know, Mr. Chairman, that Ford has made a lot of community investments. They built 4 school playgrounds in Brownsville. They made over a $90 million investment in Brownsville alone. So I really think they are there to stay. I don't see them leaving soon
I don't either.
after building that size building and all the investments they've made. So it looked like they want to be good neighbors, and they're still very active in calling and coming. So I think the committee can feel comfortable that there will be some activities going on.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Members, anyone else would like to be recognized on the Mega Site Authority? All right, I have no one else on the list. Mr. Bright, thank you very much. Thank
Thank
you
y'all.
for your update and your presentation and for answering the questions.
Have a good
Thank you
day.
very much.
Thank y'all.
All right, we will now move on over to the Department of Commerce and Insurance, and I saw the commissioner sitting back there. So if you and your team will come forward. Members, just a reminder that all the documentation is on dashboard. And for our presenters, we will control the microphone. So if you'll just wait till the red light comes on before you begin to speak. And as you do begin to speak, please identify yourself, introduce yourself for not only for the committee, but also those who are out in the audience, as well as those who are attending online. Without further ado, Commissioner Lawrence Long, thank you for being here.
Will the red light go away? It sounds like I'm
There we
I'm
go.
live. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman,
Lawrence.
Vice Chair, and entire committee. It's good to see y'all. My name is Carter Lawrence. I have the privilege of serving as the Commissioner of the Tennessee Department of Commerce and Insurance, and appreciate the opportunity to present the governor's budget as it relates to commerce and insurance today. I know that y'all have a lot of presentations today, and I was told that brevity might be appreciated, so I'll try to move through this as quickly as y'all would like, and certainly take questions at the end, or feel free to interrupt too. It's y'all's committee. So I've got here with me several members of the team, but I've got most of the executive leadership team of Commerce and Insurance in case y'all have any questions that are specific to the programs. We're going to hear directly from the people in charge of them. To my right is Deputy Commissioner Keith Boring. To my left, Director Kimberly Whaley and Assistant Commissioner Paul Hartbarger. So kind of the fiscal brains of the operation are here with us today. Our mission at Commerce and Insurance is protecting consumers and empowering professionals. And I think directly and indirectly, we're privileged to be able to serve all 7 Tennesseans through the responsible regulation of the state's insurance and securities marketplaces, through the protections in the State Fire Marshal's office, through licensing over 900,000 professionals, through training Tennessee law enforcement officers, ensuring every Tennessean has access to life-saving 911 services, and through overseeing, managing, and monitoring the companies that participate in the TennCare program. And we are committed to efficient government, as my slides will demonstrate for you as we move through this. So I'll move on to the first slide, which I think is probably what y'all might care about the most, which are cost increases. Let me just start with the top line first, which is $251,000. And all $251,000 are statutorily mandated. So we are required by law in the second and third categories to raise the salaries for our law enforcement officers, which we are proud to be able to do for the law enforcement officers that serve at the Tennessee Law Enforcement Training Academy. We do have 2 other categories that are on there where you see $0, and you might think that's a little strange to show up in cost increases. So taking the first one, the first category, which is the bondsman. So last year, a law was passed to move the bondsman to Commerce and Insurance, and the board that was given to us did not have positions that came along with it. Those part-time positions that are reflected in our overall count are something that we need for the long-term operation of the board. In the meantime, unless and until we were to get these positions, we've kind of made do and kind of patching up with a Band-Aid using some other positions that we have been able to overlap. That's obviously not long-term feasible. So that's why we're requesting those positions to be able to come into full compliance with the law that was passed last year. The final category, the fourth one, once again shows $0, and that's for the Multi-Agency Law Enforcement Training Academy, which we are anxiously looking forward to moving into, participating there. And the reason that you see $0 is part of a move from recurring to non-recurring funding as we prepare to move into Melita, where ultimately the Tennessee Law Enforcement Training Academy will not operate in its current location, and we will be a tenant resident at Melita. And so this is part of FNA's magic of making sure that the overall budget as it relates to Melita will work out for us. So I wanted to give y'all a kind of that was the cost increases, and then give you a little bit about our overall budget, which is $311 million. I did want to point out that 53% of our total department budget is the pass-through dollars that go to the ECDs through the 911 commission. And so that is making sure, as I highlighted earlier, that all of those life-saving 911 services, which have been obviously very important and on our mind in the recent winter storm, that those are able to operate, and that all of the money that's allocated from cell phone bills are able to go out into the communities. So I'll move last, as I was talking about efficiency at the beginning, and something that I think has been baked into state government overall, but certainly something that has been a lead focus for me at Commerce and Insurance. And you've got the graph on the left shows the total number of positions that we have at Commerce and Insurance, the full-time positions, that is. So the red one shows in 2019 where we had 680 full-time positions. We're down now to 663. That's despite the fact that the direct number of Tennesseans that we serve has increased, as you can see on the right-hand side, from 1.1 to 1.5 million people. So we are serving a lot more people with even fewer resources than before. And that goes into the efficiencies that I was talking about, where we've been fortunate to put in place a lot of technology systems, and where we've been able to cross-train employees and have a phenomenal team at Commerce and Insurance that are really privileged to lead. So I wanted to hit the highlights, and I know, Mr. Chairman, that you said you have a really busy agenda today with a lot to hear from, and anticipate that you might have questions. And so I will wrap up there and take any questions from me or the team, with a final thanks to you, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman, and entire committee. Thank you very much.
All right, Commissioner Lawrence, thank you again for being here, you and your team. All right, let's begin with some questions. Let's begin with Chairman Williams. Chairman Williams, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner, for being here. Also, just want to say thanks for coming by the office to sit down and communicate a little bit about what's going on with your department, what's going on financially, and also try to fix the world's problems. It doesn't happen all the time. The Commissioner comes to communicate with you one-on-one. I did have a question, though. This body provided $60 million of non-recurring revenue several years ago to allow for your department to be able to provide incentive bonuses to folks based upon certain criteria over different months and years as it relates to that. As of June 2025, it looks like of that original $60 million, there's still about $46 million non-recurring in that account. I guess my question is what would you give as the reasoning behind why that money's still there when it seems to be that from an employment or positions rate that we're pretty much where we need to be. I guess if you could tell me the why is there still $46 million non-recurring still out there?
Yes, sir. Thank you for the question. And I'll just say how thankful I am for the opportunity for Commerce and Insurance to participate in making sure that Tennessee's law officers are taken care of. And we've been privileged to be able to do that in a number of ways, separate from the training that we always do. But for that specific $60 million, I'd break it down into kind of two categories. what we've already paid out and what's yet to go out. And that goes into the way in which there are a number of deadlines that have to be hit along the way. So we talk about the money that has been paid out and the money that is encumbered to be paid out. So of that 60 million, we've got 24 million, 24.5 million that is encumbered to be paid out from the departments whose police officers are in the program and who are continuing to move forward to hit those 3-year deadlines for it to be paid out. It is, of course, our goal. Y'all gave us the money to be spent, and we are trying fastidiously to make sure that all of that money goes out to supporting Tennessee's law enforcement officers. So we've got 60% of the the departments that are participating in this. We're continuing to try and get that number up. There were some agencies that did not want to participate because of the paperwork that was associated with it. So our team continues to try and break that down and say, we can help you with that. Just you have to sign up and let us help you through that process itself. So that's kind of the top line. And I looking to see for Deputy Commissioner Kane. If you would like some more on that, I certainly can call him up, or we can follow up with you later, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, thank you for that answer. I guess the question is obviously the reason why we did this is because we were having a hard time getting enforcement officers, whether locally or for us. And so and when you're communication with those locals, it sounds like not everyone's wanting to do that. I guess, is that a majority or half? I mean, we haven't spent half the money yet. It sounds like that some of the 46 that left is still committed to those employees that we've currently done. But what has been the overall tenor of the local law enforcement agencies who are participating in it?
Yeah, sorry to step in on you there. Overall, very, very positive. Like I mentioned, there's some pushback to the paperwork that's associated with it. And I'll say, it's always a great position to be in to give out grants like the volunteer fire equipment and training grants that we talked about when I was in your office. And thank you for that time. But there is just always going to be some level of pushback to the processes that are associated with any grants. And I think we have worked very well to try and reduce that burden. But it does stand that ultimately there is some burden associated with it because that's what state procurements look like. So we have continued to work through it. And Deputy Commissioner Kane, if you're in here and you want to come up, that Deputy Commissioner Kane was recently promoted from being the director of the Tennessee Law Enforcement Training Academy and the executive secretary of the Post Commission, and could maybe speak with the greatest direct knowledge about those conversations. So if it's okay, I'll go over to Deputy Commissioner Kane.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Chip Kane, Deputy Commissioner with Commerce and Insurance. So to your question, there are some agencies that did not want to participate in a program to provide benefits to new officers coming on board because of the fact that they have officers that served through, everything they went through in 2020 and with the pandemic and all of the things that happened. And they just didn't feel that it would be fair to bring new people on board. Some agencies have really jumped feet first into this. And so I think it's important, and the commissioner did mention that this is a lengthy program. So what we wanted to do was not only encourage new law enforcement officers to join the ranks of the departments that needed people across the state, but also for them to stay for a period of time, because the thought process behind that is if you invest 3 years of your time in an agency, and we see law enforcement as being a fairly transient, group. They'll go from one agency to another. They'll chase a small pay raise and go from the city to the county and sometimes back to the city to get that little pay increase. But the more time you spend at an agency, the more likely you are to stay at that agency. And so this is a 3-year program. We've got 24.5 million of this that's encumbered. And so I feel good about where the program is right now and the fact that, we're seeing an increase in the number of salary supplement requests coming into the Post Commission, which shows that that's not just new hires. That's people who are new bodies coming into law enforcement and staying that first year where they're ineligible and then being eligible in that second year. So I do think we're seeing this program work.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to follow up.
Yes, go ahead.
So I guess when we want it to be easy, obviously, for local law enforcement agencies to do this, I guess, as it relates to the paperwork, is this like a pretty big department for you guys as relates to handling this? Is there like 2 people or 50 people? And do you retain any of that monies in order to fund it, or are you doing it with existing folks?
So we have one person that handles these grants, but as the commissioner mentioned, one of the ways that we become efficient is that we cross-train people. So when the burden gets to be too high on that one particular person, we do have other people that can step in and help. One of the focuses of this recruiting and retention bonus program is that we wanted to make it as easy as we could for the law enforcement agencies. They're already doing a lot of paperwork. We digitized our salary supplement, our annual salary supplement process. That's made things so much easier. We used to spend a month opening mail and making file folders. And now that it's digital, we're paying out in early January to the agencies that get that get those forms into us digitally, but we've tried to make it easy. And so there has to be some amount of paperwork, some amount of communication with the Post Commission, but I don't think that that's necessarily what keeps agencies from getting into this grant program. And did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did. The only caveat that I didn't hear an answer to is does your department retain any? And it becomes really interesting to see where in certain parts of state government, the department will retain 10% of the total dollar number to manage the program. My question is, do you retain any of those dollars in order to manage this program for local law enforcement agencies?
No, sir. 100% of this money is going to go into the pockets of law enforcement officers that meet those milestones.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's you are a leader in that field, and I appreciate that very much.
Chairman, thank you. Just to follow up, Deputy Commissioner Kane, before you head back, and I may have missed this, how many agencies have participated? Do you have that number?
I don't know if I have that number. I actually do have that number, 243 of the agencies, and we have about 350-ish, give or take, law enforcement agencies in the state that the Post Commission is responsible for. So it's 243.
And then as far as the biggest recipients so far, do you have those as well?
I do indeed. And so the top 5 agencies with participants in this, the Memphis Police Department has 434, the Knoxville Police Department, 189 officers, the City of Clarksville, 124, Chattanooga, 110, Rutherford County, 103, and Murfreesboro, 110. Those are our largest.
Okay, thank you. All right, next on the list will be Vice Chairman Gillespie. You're recognized.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. And this similar line of questioning, and also feel free to come to my office if we need to talk about this more. Just on what Chairman Williams was talking about, in 2022 and 23, there was about 1.6 million appropriated for a statewide hiring portal for local law enforcement agencies. It looks like there's still about 1.3 million in that right now. And I've been working with this issue for quite some time, and actually have a piece of legislation here to help local law enforcement recruit and hire more. And I did hear that you just said before Memphis had 400 plus participants. So I'm very happy to hear that, although we are still short 800 officers. Could you just elaborate on that first number? And I'm not sure who this is going to, but why so much of that is unspent and the need so great?
Yes, sir. I'll start this, and then maybe I'll let Deputy Commissioner Kane jump in as appropriate. And thank you for the question. This goes, again, we're really appreciative money that was given to us, but just because money came, we didn't necessarily think that we just had to spend it any way possible when the Department of Labor already had some existing resources that were available for us to explore from piggybacking on their efforts. And so what we didn't want to do was just recreate the wheel unnecessarily, but explore whether we could effectively use the platform that they had that would then be available for the law enforcement agencies. Now, that has not been completely perfect for us and something that we've continued to explore. So I think maybe for a little bit more flavor, if it's okay, I'll go over to Deputy Commissioner Kane, or he might even want Assistant Commissioner Hartbarger, but DC Kane, if you would, please.
William Kane, Deputy Commissioner. So with regard to this program and the website, the jobs website, law enforcement jobs across the state, there's not one place people go to be able to apply. And so one of the things that we found was that agencies, cities, counties did not want to recreate the work that they're already doing on their own job websites for their own individual cities and counties. So one thing we did do is we tagged on with the Department of Labor. Instead of just going out and striking out on our own and, drawing down all of that money, we worked with the Department of Labor to piggyback on a system that they already had, which resulted in pretty significant cost savings.
You're recognized, Chairman Gillespie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So it's my understanding that none of this is being used for it's the actual portal yourself that you've created and come to realize that other law enforcement agencies have their own portals, and that's why the money has been unspent. Am I hearing that correctly?
Well, the portal itself has not generated the type of it hasn't generated the type of use that we would have liked to have seen out of that, and that's because the local agencies do their own recruiting and hiring through their own portals. But that money was not spent in a large amount of that was not spent because we piggybacked on something that the state was already doing and just simply changed the way it looked. So we were able to use existing infrastructure to get that done.
One more, Mr. Chairman.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. So that remainder money probably won't be used for this purpose from what I'm hearing. Can y'all repurpose it, or will y'all be returning it back to us?
Yeah, if I may jump in, I think that the statutory language from the budget that gave it to us would limit it to that specific purpose. Add more, for example, into the 60 million that we previously talked about. So I believe that it would be otherwise reverted back to the general fund for subsequent usage by y'all.
Okay. Thank you so much. I would love to follow up and talk with y'all about this offline as well at a later date. That'd be great. Thank you.
We'll reach out. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next on the list is Chairman Hale. Chairman Hale, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. Commissioner, thank you so much for your work and all that you do. It's always a joy to get to be with you and see you. First of all, I want to say also a big thank you for the volunteer fire department grants, rescue squad grants, being at those presentations and seeing what a difference. I was just talking to the chief the other day at an awards ceremony and just how huge those are when they're getting, whether it's $15,000, $20,000 or $60,000 or $70,000. That's money that our taxpayers, our local taxpayers, are not having to pay. So I'm thankful for this body and for y'all in the work of that. Got a question, two questions, if I could. First of all, can you kind of tell me when I look at the number of people served and the way y'all have cut the number of people and streamlining and more efficiency, how has the core system helped y'all with as far as efficiency and then that'll lead kind of my second question with one of the regulatory boards. So if you could kind of tell us.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you first for the question, and I appreciate the plug for the volunteer fire equipment and training grants, which should hopefully be familiar to all y'all as our teams reach out and invite you to attend those, where we kind of group within geographic areas and we do those check presentations. And it's incredibly powerful to be able to understand the way that that's going towards replacing really old turnout gear or new, which those things are very expensive, and they've only gotten more expensive since the beginning of this program. So we're really proud of the VFEED program, and I appreciate you mentioning that. To the specific question you asked about CORE, it continues to work really well for us. And I'm always impressed when I will have a friend or an associate who will mention about, hey, I'm licensed through the department. I'm always ready for some sort of complaint, but usually I hear your online system works really great. And I know that's not the case for everyone, but it does continue to work well for us. Some of y'all may recall that we reprocured fairly recently that system, and we actually stayed with the incumbent vendor that they won. And so we continue to be able to provide better services using the platform. So for example, we see a lot more people who renew their licenses through their mobile device. And that wasn't the case back at the start of this. And so that's some of the work that we've done in it. We have a lot of really exciting work happening right now for serving our customers, where we have a pilot program that is using AI to be able to serve kind of those highest asked questions, where someone is reaching out and saying, what's the status of my license? And currently that gums up our call center, where someone has to receive that ticket, that question, and then they'll go and they'll check to see, all right, well, the system shows that it's pending, or you lack whatever document that was needed. And that's a really easy thing for AI to be able to marry, and it will allow our existing employees to be able to move on to those higher complexity calls. And so it's a true win-win. And that goes into some of the work that we've done within CORE. But broadly, to the general thrust of your question, through the initial kind of moving back a decade ago where we dealt with a lot of paper, we don't deal with that anymore. And we will always continue to serve those customers who just want to deal with paper, who they want to send in a paper application or a renewal. And we're committed that we will always serve those people, no matter the efficiency that we would gain if we said, sorry, we're not going to do it, because we think it's the right of our customers to be able to choose how they want to be served by the department. So when we talk about the efficiencies that we've gained, the Revenue Processing Center, over which Assistant Commissioner Paul Hartbarger has program oversight, that's one of those areas where we don't handle as much physical cash as we used to. We don't handle as much physical mail. And so when I talked earlier about the kind of ethic of efficiency that we have in the department, I think Assistant Commissioner Hartbarger probably best represents that with the number of positions that he said, hey, we don't need these anymore, and he's just given them up. That number that I showed, that might have been a little bit surprising when you say 900,000 people that they license. We don't just license Tennesseans. So you think about the insurance producers and the broker dealers and securities, they're across the country. And y'all all obviously know that the securities from the professional privilege tax, which I always have to remind people, not us, revenue, but those are a huge number of people across the country. And we've seen a huge increase. How many more people have entered the real estate profession in the last half decade? How many more people have become security guards? And so that's why our number is so high for the number of people that we serve. So I know you said you had a follow up. I hope that I answered what it was that you wanted on CORE.
Yes, thank you so much. If I can, Chairman, this will be my last question, and then I'd like to get with you about a couple other things. But with that being said, I know there was a hearing held last month with the funeral board. And so they voted to increase license renewal 100% for establishments, 50% for funeral director and embalmer. And it was mentioned that day that their expenses has went up like 40% in the last couple of years. So I just have a little bit of concern with that kind of an increase. And then not just for me as a funeral director, but what that puts, because then our people are paying for that. Because if the core system's working, then we're cutting out a lot of paperwork and stuff. Then why are we having to see that kind of an increase? So if you could.
Yeah, yes, sir. And thank you. I had anticipated that might be the board that you had a question about. So no big surprise there. That's a phenomenal team that we have in the regulatory boards division. And I actually had the privilege of previously serving as the assistant commissioner for the regulatory boards. And so it's one of our divisions that I know a little bit more about than from kind of a direct administration perspective. And so I can say, what a great director we have in Robert Gribble, and what a lean team that they have run for a long time. So that's not a board that in the last couple of years has seen a shrinking in the number of employees that they have. They have seen a rise in overall costs. So I think y'all might recall that 3 years ago, the Department of Human Resources undertook a statewide salary survey that resulted in, at Commerce Insurance, about 70% of our employees seeing pretty significant salary increases, which was incredibly beneficial for us in retaining those really good employees, and particularly those who were getting close to retirement age, who have a lot of institutional knowledge. So it's been a huge boon for the department. It has, of course, though, raised the overall costs. And that's not just directly for that team, but also for legal and for the STS for our technology provisions. And for the regulatory boards where we have that self-sufficiency requirement, then that means it's not going to go from the general fund. That's directly on the licensees, the people who are paying for it. Now, we continue to try to be as efficient as possible. And I personally think, like, philosophically, that's the right approach, that the people who are being regulated should pay for their regulation. But for us to continue to push for the more efficient delivery of the technology and of legal services, which are the big drivers. But as you know, we have rules that we have to promulgate, and we have complaints that we have to respond to. And those are the things that drive the costs. Those are the two biggest categories across the regulatory boards. It's our legal services and it's our technology provision, which is incredibly important for us. So I know that you know this and everyone in this room knows this, but we do have the public comment period in which we receive back from the licensees about what do they think about these cost increases. And it's something that, we had some comments that were opposed to it, but we had even more that were saying this is necessary. And when we are operating within the paradigm that we have to be self-sufficient, we have to balance our own budget, so to speak. It's what we have to do to continue to provide those services and protect Tennessee consumers.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Next on the list is Representative Love. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Commissioner, thank you for your presentation. I'm following up a little bit of what I think Representative Hale was in the area that he was asking about. I did notice that under one of your major programs, you have listed there Pre-Need Funeral Consumer Protection Fund and Cemetery Consumer Protection Fund. And I know that one of the more difficult things that people have to experience is a transition of loved ones, and we certainly want to make sure that whenever they have those issues, that we can mitigate as much difficulty as we can. Just if you can talk just generally about what those particular funds do and how they do protect consumers in the state of Tennessee.
Yes, sir. So thank you for the question. And, I talked about our mission is protecting consumers and empowering Tennesseans, and the protecting consumers part hits me as especially important in this area, when, as you mentioned, someone's dealing with the loss of a loved one. So specific to the pre-need and to the consumer protection, I will admit that within the last few years, we made a change in a recommendation in order to stop continuing funding, at the same rate that we were previously for that consumer protection fund because of the difficulty that exists in being able to access it. Sure. So one thing that we encountered was that while it was out there as a potential kind of backstop for someone who had been aggrieved, it was very difficult for them to access. So what we said was it appropriate for us to continue funding it to the same extent? Right. And that was the reason for which we pulled back from that. And there have been a couple of other funds that, because of the statutory provisions that exist around them and the protections from being able to access it, where we just looked and said kind of the cold numbers show that it's not really being utilized. So should we be continuing to essentially tax the licensee to fund this thing that isn't really being utilized? So the protections that we're able to offer for the consumers are in the licensure and making sure that it's the appropriate people who are getting the license and who are renewing their license, and then the complaint process that I was talking about earlier. So did I adequately address your answer? I apologize if I dropped a thread there.
Yes, and I think maybe the part about the Cemetery Consumer Protection Fund.
Yeah, it might have to ask if we have.
And if you need to, just email me.
Okay.
Get information. I don't want to belabor it, but I just want to get information about that if I can.
Yes, sir. We can follow up. I was looking back here for our assistant commissioner there, since I did ask the team that we could be here in case you had the specific questions, but we'll follow up with you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chairman.
All right. Thank you. Next on the list is Chairman Hicks of Washington. Chairman, you're recognized.
Red light. No, Chairman.
This red light.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Commissioner, thank you for being here. Really appreciate the hard work that you do. Seems like, I've had a contractor's license for many years, and just in my area, if I've always been the sounding board. So if somebody has an issue, they always call me, and you guys take care of every issue at the fullest extent. Miss Jim Tracy, been praying for Jim, and he was always really spot on getting back with us on that. So just really appreciate your hard work. And my question is, is, you guys are over a lot of different licenses and, renew those and a lot of people moving to Tennessee, a lot of new businesses in Tennessee. And this year we're going to be talking, extensively about immigration and we're going to have, quite a few bills on that. My question is currently, is there a way and a system that whenever someone, either applies for a new license or renews a license, do we check their immigration status as a U.S. citizen?
So thank you for the question. Let me just back up a little bit. Say we also miss Jim Tracy. I was able to talk with him week before last. For those that don't know, former Senator Jim Tracy, who served at Commerce and Insurance for about 6 years, retired in December, and just absolutely one of the best. And we miss him, and we'll pass on the high praise that you gave him just there. And we have a phenomenal team to the compliments that you gave, particularly the Board of Licensing Contractors, which, as you know, went through a lot of transition relatively recently, and they had a lot of backlog that they had to deal with. They had a lot of turnover, and I'm very proud of the work of that team and their leadership to be able to right the ship there. So I do know that we require that citizenship or, and I'm struggling for the proper parlance or ability to be in the country. And the one area was actually funeral directors that we encountered some years ago where our law said that you had to be a citizen. There's a Supreme Court decision that said, well, it can't just be about citizenship. It's also ability to work in the United States. And so that particular component of the statute was through an attorney general's opinion where we had to set that aside and then look instead at the license, the status of the individuals in the United States. So I know that is a component of the work that we do, making sure that it's either citizens or those who have a valid federal ability to work in the United States. And let me look to see if I can, no one's read. I think, let me call up Assistant Commissioner Reed Witcher, who is responsible for our Regulatory Boards Division. I think he's going to swap out that DC Kane is maybe off the hot seat for the moment. And Reed, hopefully I rambled long enough to give you time to get your thoughts in order that you can address that. But again, thank you for the question.
Thanks, Commissioner. And all of the initial license applications through CORE or the paper applications.
If I don't mean to interrupt you, but just to make sure, if you don't care, just introduce yourself and just to make sure we get it on record. Thank
Apologies, Chairman. Yes, Reed Witcher, Assistant Commissioner for Regulatory Boards. So all of the initial applications require a report on citizenship status or presence. And depending on how those questions are answered, if there's some deviation from typical, then it would prompt us to verify. But we don't go through the process of verifying every single applicant. It's based on the answers to the questions we provide.
Okay. That's a good answer. And as we move forward in the legislation that we're going to propose, we may have to get with you all and are you willing and able to come up with a better system in doing that to make sure that folks are here legally and full citizens of the United States of America?
I can hop in here and say, yes, sir, absolutely. We, of course, review all of the legislation as it's filed. And while I can't place off the top of my head what those bill numbers are, we are aware, have looked at them, and believe that we are in compliance. But to the extent that we can do anything better, we, of course, would willingly take that on, and we'll think about whether there are any changes that we would need for our process. But sharing the same goal that you have to make sure that people are properly here and that the ones who are being licensed by Commerce Insurance, by anyone that we've got at Commerce Insurance, that they're supposed to be licensed before we issue that license.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you guys for being here.
All right. Thank you, Chairman. As a follow-up, we're going to go back to Chairman Williams. Chairman Williams, you're recognized.
Thank you, Commissioner. I just, you kind of in the weeds a little bit. So I noticed that your collections and state fire inspections was dramatically higher than it normally would be. I didn't know if you know why that was. I just wondered if we budgeted about $767,000. It was like 3.2 million. I just wondered if there's is that a specific project, maybe a stadium? I don't know. It just seemed like
Yeah, so that I was just asking if you saw me, asking Director Whaley if that was Blue Oval. That was not one particular project. That's representative of the growth across the state and the amount of new building that we continue to see. So
Wow.
that's not the one project. I guess a couple of years ago, if you'd asked that question, Blue Oval would have been the big driver for that, but that's just statewide growth that we're seeing.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner.
All right, thank you. I have no one else on the list for, yes, I do. Chairman Grills, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I just want to follow back up on the volunteer fire departments and the rescue squads. What is the demand that you're seeing as far as those applications for those grants?
Yes, sir. So thank you, Chairman, for that question. So you may be aware that we just had our most recent grant awards. Those letters went out within the last month. And I'm proud to say that because of the work of our education outreach team within the State Fire Marshal's office, we actually had $68 million of total requests that came in. So we're continuing to see more agencies that are asking, ones that haven't asked in the past. And so there's still a lot of unmet need. Like I said, we're incredibly appreciative of all the support that the General Assembly has made for the rescue squads, the volunteer fire departments across the state. But there still is a lot of unmet need. And because all of this gear is continually wearing out, that's not likely to go away. And so I'm very appreciative of the opportunity that we've had to support those. But $68 million, to your question, was how much came in this most recent grant period.
How many grants or applications were not able to be met though, because lack of funds, or was there any?
There would have been some, and let me see if I can get Assistant Commissioner Mike Bell to come up.
That's okay. Well, let me ask it. How many people in the state of Tennessee are serviced by volunteer fire departments? Do you know what that percentage is?
Yes,
off the top
sir,
of
I
your head?
do. It's actually higher. You might recall I've said 68% in the past. It's actually 71% of the state is served by volunteer fire departments.
And their primary source of funding comes from grants and counties and cities that are willing to give, and fundraisers. Is that fair?
Yes, sir. That's
And
right.
lots of good people that are willing to give of their family time.
That's right. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I see that Mike Bailey showed up. Mike, is there anything you want to add to the discussion? Since you walked all that way, I'm going to give you an opportunity.
Good morning, Chairman Hicks. No, I'm just happy to be here. I would say, Chairman Grills, there were about 20 departments.
Mr. Bell, just as a reminder, please introduce yourself and what department you're from.
Sorry, my name's Mike Bell, Assistant Commissioner of Fire Prevention, Commerce, and Insurance. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Grills. There were about 20 fire departments out of the 424 that did not get a grant. Roughly, I may be off by one or two, but that's the number. Close.
Chairman Grills, you recognize.
Okay, thank you. So we've seen this program really grow over the past few years, and it's really meeting the needs then. Is that fair to say?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all. And I will say, if you want to see the commissioner and his staff start glowing all of a sudden, start talking about these grants. If you've never been to some of these events where we award the grants and all the different departments show up, I tell you, it's a really a special meeting, and I always enjoy those. They're really excited about being able to get those grants. And because you think about this, and you talked about, Chairman Grills mentioned this, because each dollar they get from the state means a little less time they have to stand out in the middle of the road trying to beg folks for donations. So thank you all very much. I have no one else on the list this morning. So gentlemen, thank you all. Commissioner, thank you for being here. Thank you and your staff for answering our questions. All right, we will move right into the Inmate Disciplinary Oversight Board and Executive Director Michael Stahl. And we will ask him to come forward. And gentlemen, good morning. As you get prepared there, just a reminder, we will control the microphone. So once your red light comes on, if you'll just begin to introduce yourself. And when you are ready, you may begin. Members, just a reminder that documentation is on the dashboard. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Michael Stahl, Executive Director of the Inmate Disciplinary Oversight Board. To my right, we have our chairman and former Obion County Sheriff, Jerry Vassbinder. Thank you very much for having us. It's an honor to appear before you today. I'd like to take just a few minutes to present this distinguished committee with the mission and goals that guide our work at the board every day. In short, our board reviews the grant, denial, and removal of inmate sentence credits for every inmate at each of the state's 14 correctional facilities. We determine whether sentence credits previously awarded should be removed following the commission of a major Class A offense or for an inmate's refusal to participate in an assignment. We as a board are extremely proud of this mission and of our goals, primarily to ensure and enhance the safety of all Tennesseans. I'd like to take just a few minutes to highlight some of the important work that's been accomplished by our 9 board members this year. Over 15,000 Class A, which are the most serious incidents, were reviewed by just 9 board members in 2025. We removed more than 400,000 credit days from inmates above and beyond what the Department of Corrections recommended. We restored more than 34,000 credit days to inmates above and beyond what the Department of Corrections would have done. We identified and reported to the Board of Parole more than a dozen prolific offenders for parole considerations. We requested additional review of several Class A incidents for further criminal charges with the local district attorney offices. We provided several legislative memorandums considering the impact of sentencing credits on recently committed crimes. And we've worked closely with the Department of Corrections on developing and instituting a new, more comprehensive sanctions matrix. We've also identified significant gaps in the Department of Corrections disciplinary process and have worked on policy enhancements to improve and resolve those inefficiencies. We've conducted site checks at 12 of 14 Department of Corrections facilities. And we've identified and recommended a number of statutory changes to enhance the effectiveness of the sentence credit system and improve public safety. This year, we've requested a 6.5% increase to our funding as detailed in our committee packet, which will go toward personnel and operational costs to improve our very lean staffing pattern, improve efficiencies due to increasing workload, ensure consistency of outcomes, improve transparency and coordination with partner agencies, and ensure continued alignment with state priorities such as public safety. There's no supplemental funding for fiscal year 26-27, no proposed capital improvements or anticipated loss of one-time funding, and no federal COVID relief funding. In closing, the board is extremely grateful for your leadership and stewardship of state resources and your unfailing support for this board and its important mission. With that, I'll be happy to take any questions.
All right. Director, thank you for being here again. And we do have a couple questions we would like to ask. I've got several people on the list, and members, if you'd like to get on there, please just get our attention up here. But let me begin by, you've kind of mentioned, but let me ask you, what is the relationship between the board and TDOC? How should the process actually work?
Well, right now, we're completely independent from the Department of Corrections, and we value that independence greatly. We think it's a process that works well and is necessary to provide the type of feedback and efficiency that's necessary to do the work that we do. However, part of our statute does require that we work with TDOC on policy improvements. So essentially, TDOC handles the immediate disciplinary process. Sentence credits are due process requirement, and that's a legal requirement that's been in place for decades. We only have the 9 board members, so we aren't able to actually have the hearings that TDOC holds because, like I said, there were more than 15,000 individual incidents this year. So TDOC conducts the initial hearing and creates a determination for a sanction or punishment. We receive all that information, and then we review it to determine whether that sanction needs to be increased, decreased, or approved as is. And that's a completely independent process. Now, as we go through that process where we recognize that there are policy issues that need to be addressed, we have monthly leadership meetings with the Department of Corrections to explain to them where their policies and processes perhaps are inefficient or failing. And then we provide them the instruction that they need to make improvements to that policy. We're also in the final stages of developing a memorandum of understanding to codify that relationship. But from a baseline perspective, we are completely independent from the Department of Corrections.
So how do you all get the information that you all receive in order to make the decisions that you've been tasked with?
Primarily through the electronic Tennessee Offender Management System. Most people might know it as eTomas. That's where we get the raw data that we use. But we also have a system in place to ask further follow-up questions. So the eTomas system does not have the capacity to include all of the information that goes into a disciplinary event. So for example, if there's medical parts that need to be documented, that isn't able to be included in the eTomas system. So we have a process with the Department of Corrections where we'll ask for follow-up documentation on those hearings that we need it for. So it's a combined eTomas system that we utilize primarily for data, and then working with the Department of Corrections on any follow-up or documentation that we might need as well.
Which brings me to another question. Do you have full access to eTomas?
No, we don't. We have requested the screens that we use primarily, and we only have read-only access. So we don't have access to make any changes, and there are certain screens that we don't have access to, primarily because we haven't requested those, because they don't necessarily serve what we do. But all of that is still controlled by TDOC.
So is it being considered by, I guess, your department maybe to come up with your own platform?
Yes, that is one consideration that we've talked about, not only for the purpose of gathering the data that we need, but allowing us the ability to work with the eTomas system in a way that's communicative both ways, so that we can provide information to the system and also get information from the system as needed without necessarily having to go through STS or the Department of Corrections. That is something that we've spoken about and we'd like to put in place. It also helps with transparency, auditability, public records request, and all those things that are independent from the eTomas system.
Okay, and I'll just say, I won't really dive into that, but I'm a little bit concerned because I feel like there is a little bit of a disconnect between your board and what TDOC is doing. And so I just want to encourage both parties to really make sure that data is being transferred back and forth, because you guys can only make the best decisions in what you all have been charged with if you all have all the data to be able to make the decisions. And so I just want to really encourage that conversation to continue. So I'll stop there to get off my soapbox before I get on a little higher. Let's move on to Leader Cochran. You're recognized. Has he stepped out? All right. Oh, there he is. He's moved seats. You're recognized.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for coming to us here this morning. Quick question on some of your reversions from last year. So last year you reverted $329,000 in fiscal year 25. So of that, though, only $589 was reported from unspent operational funding. So while the remainder of that $329,000 was from vacant positions. So kind of the crux of the question, do you currently have funding in your base budget to cover the $25,000 to $50,000 you need for technology upgrades? Do you have enough of that in your budget?
No, we'd asked for additional funding for the technology upgrades because that reversion was primarily due to not having all the board members present. So this year is actually the first year starting in December we've had all the board members present. So our budget is very lean when it comes to operational costs. More than 98% of our budget goes to salaries, and just a hair above 100,000 actually goes to operational costs. So that reversion was due to not having to spend salaries on a number of board members that weren't in place for the fiscal year last year, which allows us to save a significant amount of money. But that's why that reversion was only $500 for the operational cost, because that's a very, very small part of our budget. And so we've asked for an increase in that to allow us to do some of the things that we need to do operationally and separate from salary.
Leader Cochran.
And so long story short, you wouldn't project a $329,000 reversion for the upcoming fiscal year, because all of those positions are now filled, is basically.
That's correct, sir.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next on the list, Chairman Grills. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And a while ago, you mentioned in your presentation, you mentioned site visits. What are you looking for at those site visits? What is that process?
So a number of things. We like to speak directly with the disciplinary hearing officers primarily. We're also getting in communication with the wardens. One of the things that we want to do is we want to ensure that there's a consistent application of these policies across the state. One of the issues that we were primarily tasked with was looking at the differences between the different facilities and how they sometimes treat these Class A incidents. And so our site visits are primarily geared toward not only introducing ourselves and hearing directly from the people on the ground about how they're applying these policies, the type of instructions they're being given, how long they've been in the position, qualifications, those types of things, but also speaking with the wardens about cultural, empirical changes, anecdotal changes that they're hearing or seeing, and then seeing for ourselves, actually viewing disciplinary hearings, making sure they're going through the correct processes, and making sure that those outcomes are consistent across the state.
So when you learn something that from one of your site visits, do you make a recommendation back to the commissioner or that warden on what you would suggest and how you think it could, better facilitate the inmate care? Or
Yes, sir. That's exactly what we do. So we try to do it. We get together once a month for our public meetings, and at those public meetings, we discuss as a board the things that we want to communicate to the Department of Correction. And then we have a monthly leadership meeting with the Department of Correction, or we talk directly with the commissioner if it's serious enough about things that we're either seeing for ourselves at these site visits or trends that we're seeing across the state and why that's driving some of the policy changes that we're recommending to them.
do you make recommendations as far as moving inmates from prison to prison across the state and how that, I guess my question is, I've got several inmates that have been moved from prison over in Middle Tennessee to my part of the world, and it's seemed to have caused some issues. Are you responsible for any part of that?
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay. Just that is strictly TDLC that's making those decisions then?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the time.
All right, thank you, Chairman. Next on the list, Representative Sparks, you recognize.
Yeah, thank you. When you do your performance measures, do you see any facilities that stand out with more problems than others?
I'll take one part of that, which is we provide an annual review to the legislature as well as all the appointing authorities every year. One of the things that we do in our annual report is we try to identify those facilities that we're seeing particular trends with. On page 6 of that annual report, and I won't go through all the data points, but we have highlighted a few facilities where we're seeing, for instance, greatest percentage increase in sanctions, facilities where we're needing to provide the highest level of revisions to the determinations that are made. So yes, we have a couple of those institutions that we try and communicate with TDOC when we're seeing particular trends. But I'll also turn to our chairman who's directly involved in those types of things. And he may be able to talk to you a little bit more about that.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Jerry Vassbinder, Chairman. Going through our process as we review the cases each month, the CoreCivic Prison Whiteville is the highest that has the most problems. But Whiteville is also a drug rehabilitation facility. So a lot of their write-ups, which are Class A write-ups, are refusing to take a drug test or altering a drug test or a positive drug test. But Whiteville is the highest. And then I believe Hardeman County, which is also CoreCivic, comes in second on that, sir.
Well, is there a correlation? You say CoreCivic, so they have the most problems, I'm assuming.
Out of the 14 prisons, yes, sir. The 4 CoreCivic prisons tend to have more problems, more write-ups versus the Tennessee Department of Correction prison.
Well, Chairman, is there a correlation between not enough correctional officers at the CoreCivic facilities versus the state? Is that factored in?
Yes, sir. That's one of the things that we find out, that CoreCivic is running shorter on the number of employees that they have at their prisons. So yes, it's lack of employees.
Yes, sir. What's being done? I mean, that's probably out of your wheelhouse, but is that being adequately addressed, do you feel?
I believe it is. I believe CoreCivic is trying to get their salaries up now to the TDOC level, because when TDOC did increase their salary levels to get better pays for their correctional officers, they were able to recruit more correctional officers in most of their facilities.
So TDOC is doing a better job than Core Civic?
Oh, yes, sir.
All right, thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. Next on the list, I have Chairman Williams. Chairman Williams, you recognize.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for being here today. I just had a quick question. Do you have a forward, like a forward-facing or a portion of your board or department where victims contact your office regarding maybe inmate behavior or anything like that? Or are you relying solely upon corrections to provide or witness services in order to provide you that information?
So we've done a number of things to try and reach out to victims, families, and communities so that they can be a part of our decision-making process. We've reached out to a number of victims coordinators across the state so that they can get in contact with us when needed. We also have a portion of our website that has a form that anyone can fill out that asks any questions or lets us know information that we need to know about particular cases. And then we follow up on those individually. And then we also have at all of our public meetings a portion of that where we invite the public to come and speak to us. And our December meeting, we had very powerful and moving gentlemen come and speak to us about the issues with some of the drugs that we're seeing in the facilities and how his son was directly impacted by that. So we do try and provide access for anyone who wants to reach out to the board to communicate with us directly. And also we try and be proactive about that as well.
Have you changed any sentence credits as it relates to any of those communications with victim services, or is that mainly handled through corrections and then you review it?
The initial process is handled through corrections, and then we review it. There have been a couple of instances where we were contacted by members of the public, and then we have an appeals process as well. So we would advise them to tell their inmate to utilize our appeals process, and then through our appeals process, we were able to make revisions.
Okay. I just had an instance where someone from my community, their family was a victim of someone that was in there. They were on social media communicating about the former victim, their daughter, and they were following. I was surprised they were following about the credits that this person was receiving in spite of these different things. So I think it's important for the public to know that they have an advocate or a voice in your department. I guess one of the questions regarding medical records that kind of sticks out to me is because drug testing is considered a medical record, is that why you don't have access to it?
Yes. So part of the reason we don't have access to all of the records is because the electronic Tennessee offender management system, eTomas, doesn't have a capacity to include documents in its system. And so anytime we need direct documentation, paper documentation, we have to reach out to the Department of Corrections. So we just don't right now through the data system that they have, it's not always available to us unless it's an instance where we recognize a specific need. And in that case, we request particular documents. So I understand that the Department of Corrections is already in the process of creating a new or enlisting a new provider to retire the eTomas system into a new system. That's part of the conversations we have with them, that we've told them we need to build in these capabilities with the new system so that we don't always need to reach out for paper documentation. We can see it at the same moment that we're reviewing the incident.
Well, I too, like Chairman Hicks, don't want to get on a soapbox here, but if I were to go to a medical provider, I would hope that they'd have access to all the information about my health. In this case, I think it's important for you guys to have access to all the information as it relates to inmates. And so my hope is that communication would better improve and access would better improve as well. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Next on the list, Chair Lady Moody. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I think my question is more, I'm not sure you are the ones, but I know some of my constituents that do work inside the prisons have said, of course, they're aware when another officer is attacked in some way. They never know what happens if that employee doesn't come back. So that's one question, and I don't know if you're the ones that would know that answer or handle that. But also the other thing, do they, are they notified of, I guess they noticed that the inmate has moved somewhere else. I guess just more communication with the officers inside that are seeing or experiencing these attacks and what is being done with that inmate. Does that make sense?
It does. Do you want to? So to the first question about whether or not others in the prison would be aware of the punishment following a Class A incident or an assault. We aren't aware of TDOC policy with regard to communicating those sanctions or those punishments to others outside of the victim and the inmate. When we make our decision on a punishment, we notify TDOC, who we believe is supposed to notify the victim, whether it's an officer or a staff member. We also directly notify the inmate of the sanction that's been imposed. And that sort of kicks off the opportunity for an appeal. So the expectation and what we've communicated to the Department of Correction is that these types of events are being communicated to everybody. And we're looking for empirical evidence to demonstrate to us that behaviors are changing. And we are seeing that. We are seeing a significant reduction in the overall number of Class A incidents that are occurring from the beginning of 2025 through the end of 2025. We think that's a good indicator of changing behaviors. So not only are others being made aware of the sanction that's the punishment that's being imposed following an assault or an incident, but the inmates themselves are recognizing the seriousness of their conduct and are changing their behaviors because of it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Next on the list, Leader Camper, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your presentation. My question is around the sentence credits. When TDOC, or when we house inmates in local facilities, for whatever reason they're there, and they get credits while they're there, when they transition to a TDOC facility, do those credits transfer in too, or do they have to start the clock all over again?
Actually, Chairman Vastbinder was Obion County Sheriff for a number of years, and he kept a number of TDOC inmates, so I'm sure he can talk you through that entire process.
Yes, ma'am. Jerry Vastbinder, Chairman, excuse me. Yes, ma'am. Each county jail has access to the TDOC TOMA system. So good time credits are put into the system as they occur in the county jail. So when they are transferred to the Department of Corrections, they have the exact amount of good time that they had while they were in the county jail. Now, there are two different types of good time credits in county jails. Last year, I believe, July 1st, y'all enacted a new law that any inmate that has 3 years or more of a sentence that's in the county jail will only receive credits equal to TDOC credits, which are the minimum of 6 good days per month, and you can have an extra 2 days bonus days. So you have a maximum of 8 days, and then you can also have program credits for going to educational classes, GED. You get a maximum of 60 days credit in a year, no matter how many cases. But your prisoners that are technically a state prisoner that have been sentenced to less than 3 years, they still get what inmates used to call the 2-for-1 credit. So if these are usually minimum security inmates that you will see picking up trash on the side of the road or mowing the grass at courthouses or schools. They actually get 2 days or get a day's credit for each day that they work. So they can actually, if they work technically 30 days, they could build up 30 days. But the credits are transferred based on their classifications.
Thank you for that answer. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's my only question.
Thank you. Representative Capley, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. I think my question would probably be better directed toward corrections. Y'all are not over like the mowing and all that, right? Okay, yeah. Sorry. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, members, I have no one else on the list this morning, so thank you all very much. Director, thank you, and thank you as well, Sheriff. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, sir.
All right, we will move into the Corrections Institute, and I'll ask Mr. William Wall, the Executive Director, if he'll move forward. And members, just a reminder, be sure you're signed in. It makes it a little bit easier when you want to be recognized if we can find your name. So just be sure you have signed in. And to our presenters, if you will begin by just stating who you are, just a brief introduction, and then we will control your microphone. So once you see that red light come on, you're ready to go. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee members, for having us today. I'm William Wall. I'm the Executive Director of the Tennessee Corrections Institute. We're responsible for inspecting all of the local jails across the state, workhouses and police lockups, training for all of the officers working in local jails and the over 120 facilities, as well as technical assistance, accreditation, and whatever else all 95 counties need. We assist every local agency across the state with any correctional needs that they have. This year, our budget, we're not asking for a single penny. We're in current talks with the governor's office to finalize some things which didn't come out in the budget, to move some funds from operational to salary for a movement of positions from both contracted positions and needed positions for the future, so we can push the laundry list of classes out to the agencies that are sitting in a well, and just we're hoping doesn't dry up as far as different types of classes. And I brought a whole bevy of people with me to discuss that. But ultimately, no new funding. In fact, we had about a $70,000 reduction in our budget. But we can do this at no cost just by changing some, and actually save money if we change some of these contracted positions or the money allocated for contracted positions over to state employees. But once again, we still don't know what the final result is. We're still in talks with the governor's office to see where that lands. But we were in the hopes to add those or add any that weren't asked for, possibly through you guys moving forward. And with that, I'll take any questions you all have.
All right. Thank you, Director Wall. We do have a couple of questions and a couple of people on the list. Let's begin with Representative Capley. Representative Capley, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, I have a couple of questions. We'll start with this one. So state law dictates that 10 cents is collected for each telephone call made by an inmate housed in a local jail. With all that funding is going to be used exclusively for correctional officer training. In your response to the HFWM questionnaire, you stated that the FCC is attempting to regulate inmate telephone costs and reduce commissions on inmate telephone calls, which poses a significant fiscal risk to your agency. So if you could provide kind of an overview of this, how it's impacting you, what steps you taking, and just kind of what it looks like for us.
So thus far, the FCC ruling hasn't totally impacted us. What I'll say is this, is that some of the companies are determining that the FCC is if we were getting a commission from that, which goes back into local correctional officers. So we have some companies, and we were currently in the process of seeking an attorney general's opinion, that are saying, no, we don't have to pay that because of the FCC's opinion. In general, it could affect over between $1 and $1.4 million a year that are coming in, that are going directly back in services and in grant money to the local agencies, something that we just act as a pass-through on. And this has been I mean, we're glad the FCC made some last minute adjustments here for the local agencies, because the local agencies would have suffered even more as far as the money coming back to locals for those phone services. But luckily, they made a last minute adjustment, set some different rates. But it's more of the companies that are saying, oh, we don't have to pay this because it's a commission, where the state legislature set it as essentially a tax to the companies to say, we want to invest back in the correctional facilities through training and services. And for the past 3 years, and Jason Smith, who's our Director of Administration, about $3 million we currently have had earmarked that we sent directly back in cash payments for training equipment, for improvements, even down to chairs and tables, because some of these agencies, and I know you all know your districts, some of these agencies were teaching classes with a sheet hung on the wall and borrowed, school desks in their training rooms, and many agencies across the state, and it doesn't matter who, everyone's available. It's available to everyone. And we have seen enormous improvements in training space and training rooms for the locals to teach, and also places where we go in and teach, because we're direct to consumer in most occasions, and we teach at the local agencies. So it's been very beneficial. And I just worry that, that if they say it is, then ultimately that cuts out $1 to $1.5 million a year, and we would have to end the grant program, and we self-fund multiple positions through training, and those would either have to go away or the state appropriations and have to pick them up. And I know, just how it reads on here, it's all state appropriations. Each year that money is infused into our budget for what is gained, and a rollover fund. That is where we're pulling the grant fund from, which we have it now to where it can self-sustain for a period of time. Unless there's a rate change, but our board does a great job of managing that with us. And we hope that the Attorney General's opinion comes back in affirmative to say, no, voice over IP phones count as phones. And that's part of the contention. I apologize. That is one of the arguments. Voice over IP doesn't count as a telephone call, is one of the arguments from one of the vendors. So we're working through it. But thank you for the question.
Representative Kaplan?
Yes, sir. Thank you for that explanation. My next question, I know Wayne County's had at one point in time, I had a constituent reach out to me and said that there was a state-run program where inmates would go and kind of take care of the lawn care for cemeteries in the surrounding areas. They're claiming that stopped. I don't know. So if y'all could just send me an email, what's going on with that, if it did stop, why, or if it didn't, that's just whatever you got.
I can give you a quick explanation on that. When it's probably an affordability thing for the locals, because there's a requirement if you're bringing workers out that they either have to be armed guards or, an armed officer who's a correctional officer, or it has to be, they have to have ankle monitors. So there's sometimes some money or training. We're trying to assist that to where some programs like that can become part of the ask with the positions. Is there's not a lot of firearms training for correctional officers, and most corrections officers in the state working for local agencies are sheriff's deputies and are carrying and are certified to carry. However, we're looking at rolling out some specific training for those items, but I think that would help, but ultimately it's the law that is sometimes hampering them monetarily.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. And we do have several folks, but I've got just a couple questions myself. What's the current rate right now that the state's paying locals to house those state inmates?
It's $41 a day per state sentenced inmates. That there's a lot of caveats there, but ultimately we believe all counties and all local governments are up to the $41. We had some anomalies there. We were able to work with the governor's office and some others. I know there was counties like Hancock that were getting 30-40% less than the rate, and we were able to work through some things, and they were able to get up. However, with accreditation, part of the governor's initiative for implementation of programming and just a bevy of things, I could talk all day on this. They can get an upwards for Tier 1 accreditation, $47 a day, and Tier 2 accreditation, $53 a day per state inmate. And that accreditation is from types of inmate services, mental health services, officer training requirements, things that are beneficial, which help reduce liability and offer services not only to inmates, but the officers who work there.
You mentioned Hancock County. I want to say thank you personally. I know you have helped them quite a bit, so I want to say thank you. How many inmates are being housed in our local jails, state inmates?
RK, do you know it? Well, we are more than in the state prisons and including the contract. We have anywhere between 26 to 30,000 or 24 to 30,000, and it rotates in local jails. That's, as you know, most of that is pretrial felons or, sentenced local felons or pretrial misdemeanors. There's about 37 classifications I could go through, but, until they're state sentenced more than 3 years, they're typically in your local jail.
Right. Do you have any idea of what that savings to the state is by the locals housing?
I'm unsure of what the Department of Correction places their rate at for their inmates or for their per diem for inmates of what it costs them to house per day. I know that I will say this, that even with the basic rate, I know that speaking with quite a few facilities, they know that it's just a losing game, that it's definitely costing more to hold them than to not have them in their custody. But they understand it's people who have committed crimes in their community. They'll hold them until they're able to be moved.
All right, let's go to Vice Chairman Gillespie. You recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Director and team for being here. As I'm sure you'll know, I'm from Shelby County, and I've in the past tried to help our jail 201 Poplar. And I was wondering if you could indulge the committee a little bit, if you could just give a kind of a brief synopsis as to what your department is doing to help. I understand, we're short so many people, and if the building is broken, there's only so much you can do. But if you could just walk for the committee, what that is that y'all are doing in that regard, please.
Well, again, anything that's required by statute as far as, inspections, all of those things. But we spend quite a bit of time with the sheriff's officials looking at solutions to help fix some of the problems. As you know, the building at 201 Poplar, it's older and it's deteriorating, but I think they do a great job of ensuring that it is as safe as possible as far as the condition of that facility. We assist them by doing multiple technical assistance visits. Recently, we went to Millington to review the federal work camp as an overflow housing. Myself and Director Kane performed a site visit and gave them somewhat of a laundry list of, hey, this needs to be brought up a little bit to standard to ensure the safety of the officers working there and, of course, the people in their custody. So running the gamut, I promise you that Sheriff Bonner keeps me on speed dial. And I was speaking to him last night. So I think we try to do everything within our power and within our resources to help.
Chairman Gillespie.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And I know everyone in the room does, and specifically the people of Shelby County. This is an ongoing issue. I know that we can talk about it all we want until actually something changes. It's going to be Band-Aids. That's my opinion, at least. I don't know if you have a comment on that or if you just agree with what I just said.
The only comment that I have is ultimately I know that the sheriff takes a lot of heat over anything dealing with the jail, but it's ultimately in the hands of the county commission and the people who hold the tax, who hold the tax dollars and decide to do what to do with them. As a person who doesn't like tax increases at all, they're just in a tough place, but it doesn't lie with the sheriff. He's doing the best with what he's got. And I'm not here to defend him. I'm just saying that's a decision for the county commissioners to make on what they're prioritizing in Shelby County. And I think that jail should be a high priority for the repair and for things or a new facility. Ultimately it's up to them. We try to assist with that plan the best we can through information. They had a CTAS study performed this year at our recommendation that listed a lot of things. And I'm certain you read it, Mr. Vice Chair. We were part of that study. CTAS, asked us to come out and look at some things as well with them. So hopefully a decision will be made and hopefully something can be done to help out that facility.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We have a follow-up by Representative Gant. Representative Gant, you're recognized.
Chairman. Representative Gillespie brought up a thought, and I was looking at the latest numbers for the Memphis Safe Task Force, and it says they've made 5,811 arrests. Where are all those people being held?
Well, it just depends on their status. You have partner agencies across the state. You have different ICE detention facilities. I know there's a facility in Mason. That's a federal facility. There's lots of different places they're going. That's another part, Mr. Vice Chair, is what we did was when all that was kind of first starting, we assisted with them in figuring out, okay, how to move all these pieces and not flood 201 Poplar as the central hub. And while it's still busier than it has been, they were able to mitigate some of those things by, okay, what is their status? Can we book them into a federal detention facility, an ICE detention, or did they have holds in other areas that are outside of Shelby County? So there's lots of different, it's a big pretzel of if this, then that, if that makes sense. So a lot of people are being moved to other jurisdictions, believe they have again, the Mason facility and maybe some partnerships with neighboring counties, or I know with state facilities that the governor's worked with them on utilizing some of their current state facilities to help that.
So is there a shortfall of housing inmates across the state?
I mean, if you look to capacity, it's regionalized, and certain people have addressed it, certain people haven't. In general, we're talking about, I don't know, probably, I'll have to look at the numbers, or if you'd like me to send you the numbers of how many that we do have overcrowded, because it's around 20. Would that be a correct statement, RK? Around a little lower than 20 that are overcrowded. But one of the things that we look at with overcrowding is once you hit to about 85 to 90% of your capacity, in theory, you are overcrowded, because then you lack the ability to move people away from people they shouldn't be with. I hope that makes sense. Just basically keeping predators from prey, because I mean, we talk a lot about the prison system, but the jail system is, it is way more complex. And what I mean by that is they're holding everyone from, and forgive my attempt at humor here, but grandma got a little drunk at the knitting club and, had a public intoxication, and then Jeffrey Dahmer's in the other cell. So you're dealing with a hodgepodge of people, and it's difficult, and that exacerbates the problem with overcrowding. And I know that's some of the challenges that a lot of these facilities are faced with.
Yeah. Do you think this affects the judges' decisions on how they react to certain offenses, with having a place to know if they bring down a certain sentence that they have to have a place to put them? I mean, is that a concern that judges have expressed?
In meetings, and I can't speak for the judges, but I can speak to things that I have heard, and it helps. It hurts their decision making whether they feel like they've slapped this person on the hand too many times. That there has to be a place to put them, and when a jail is overcrowded, sometimes that makes it difficult in their decision, because there's no place to put them, and you have to start weighing how dangerous is this person versus this person. And I've heard numerous judges speak of that quandary or conundrum, and say it gets into selective enforcement. So I would say that much. But then on the opposite end, you have some that just kind of release anybody, is what I've heard on the other end as well.
Yeah, you were correct about that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for letting me jump in.
All right, thank you. Next on the list, Leader Cochran, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One quick follow-up from our previous testimony. So we heard from the inmate disciplinary oversight board, and talking about their access, I guess, to E-Thomas, and maybe that they don't have full access currently. explain to, where's the break? And I'm not saying that that's necessarily your fault but where's the breakdown? Why wouldn't they have full access? Maybe just give us the high points of that.
Oh, you're dragging me in the middle of something that I have no dog in that fight, but I don't know. I mean, I'm familiar with all of that. We deal with inmates in Thomas. We don't have access to Thomas at all.
Okay.
But however, I would say just administratively and having ultimately up to you guys on what the law would allow them to have, but also maybe a conversation with the commissioner or the governor's office to say, hey, how can we provide this access? And let's make sure we're not violating anyone's rights by giving over access, HIPAA, those types of things. But I don't know. I'm unfamiliar with all the details of that, so
Okay.
I hate to speak to it.
That's okay. Thank you.
I guess to expand a little bit on that, but you would say the local jails that are housing those state inmates, they do have full access because they have to be able to read and write to the platform. So they do have access to eThomas. Would that be correct?
The local jails?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. As far as entering time and as far as those items are concerned, absolutely.
Okay. All right, let's move on to Representative Chisholm. You're recognized.
Oh, there we go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So my question is, I don't know if this question is for you all or not, but who's responsible for the empty beds in our prisons right now for both our private prisons as well as our state ran?
That would be the Department of Correction. That's Tennessee Department of Correction. We just do the local jails, and the police lockups and workhouses. It's completely the Department of Correction. They control all those beds.
Okay. So for you all's beds, who's responsible for those empty beds?
Each local agency and any state housed inmate that's in there, eventually the state's responsible to move those inmates.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Representative Love, you're recognized.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for your presentation. I have a question about trainings that you may provide or guidance you may provide for local jails when it comes to how they care for and or deal with pregnant women.
Okay. I have our Director of Training here, David Alola. I'm sure he'll be happy to speak to that.
David Alola, Director of Training. In our basic corrections officer training, we do cover the statutory requirements as it pertains to housing of pregnant females. Facility policy and procedure also is something that's covered at the individual agency, and that is a training requirement under orientation guidelines and continuing education guidelines. So the compliance aspect is during inspection, we ensure that they are meeting the statutory mandate and requirements, and they are meeting our legislative rules to ensure that they are performing the training. But the actual training the facility conducts itself it's more of a supervised aspect. We look at their training, ensure they're conducting it, ensure it meets the aspects required. But we ourselves, outside of an overview and introduction to the law, we do not conduct that training ourselves because it is very facility specific, because every facility is different. I could go to one county and this county may not restrain females at all, because they don't believe in using restraints at all. And then I go to another facility and then they just say, okay, well, minimum restraints is hand restraints in the front, which is the minimum permissible by the law. So it's really circumstantial, sir.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for your answers. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Next on the list is Chairman Hale. You're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning. Good to see you this morning. I miss a face with y'all's group, Mr. Bob Bass, miss him.
Yeah.
But still do hear his name called occasionally on a news report. So going back, met with y'all probably 3 years ago now, I guess it's been. When we talk about a plan of action, talk about these timelines and how long and can continue and getting kicked down the road and all of that, how can we fix the issue? And you're familiar with the DeKalb County situation, got the same thing in Cannon County. We continue to kick that can down the road, and that can gets messier and gets more distorted and gets uglier, and it's a whole lot more costly on the taxpayers. So how can we fix that issue that kind of brings that, when we know that a jail's got to be fixed, got to be replaced, got to be done, what can we do to fix that?
Thank you for the question, Chairman Hale. Leader Lamberth actually is sponsoring some legislation to do just that this year, and place limitations on inaction. However, it could continue long. I think once we peel it back, it could last for longer than 5 years to be on a plan of action. But it's really just saying, okay, there's not an endless limit on doing nothing. Leader Lamberth's legislation really impacts that.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Hill. Since you name dropped twice, I'm going to have to go to Leader Lamberth now. So Leader Lamberth, you're recognized.
Mr. Chairman, if you're a fan of that bill, there's sign-on sheets in my office. Love to have you on board.
Thank you. All right. Next on the list, Representative Sparks, you're recognized, sir.
Director, reached out to a guy that you and I both know. He don't want me to say his name. He's asking me about reentry initiatives and how they're going. And do the counties need more resources to sustain them?
What I'll do is I'll defer to our Director of Operations, William Kane. I mean, I will say this, that we have a steeped history in helping with these programs as work release and others, reentry type programs. And we have come a million miles with the governor's initiative in helping stand up some of these agents or stand up some of these programs. And I'll let William Kane speak to it. You're good.
Okay, there we go. William R. Kane, Director of Operations. And since the governor's initiative, we have actually, I would dare say our agency has probably done more within the local agencies to further the reentry initiative than probably any other department I can think of. So I'll toot our own horn a little bit, then I'll back that up. Since the infancy, since we started this is the 5th year. We have a program summit that's attended by pretty much all 95 counties, which provides unparalleled training and resources and networking to all the local agencies across the state. And it's very well attended. We average about 220 of the facility program directors and facilitators. We've conducted regional training of the staple programs across the state. This is be the 5th year in a row. So we've provided training on MRT, Thinking for a Change, Seeking Safety, and several other staple programs that are vital programs for the agencies to implement and support their reentry initiatives. Along with that, we have the accreditation process that we have spearheaded. And as of date, we have 24 counties and agencies that are Tier 1 accredited. So they're receiving that additional $6 a day stipend on top of their $41 a day and or whatever they may be contracted with. So it's above and beyond that for those agencies that fall in that category. We have 8 that are now Tier 2 accredited. So they're receiving an additional $12 a day to help support that. So we've really gone above and beyond in supporting the reentry initiative for all the local agencies across the state, and we're continuing to do so. So those are the efforts and initiatives that we've taken on and really run with this program.
Representative Sparks.
Yes, sir. Got a local county commissioner. This is a big issue back home. I mean, we've got to fund a $400 million jail. As you know, we're in need of 5 new schools over the next 5 years. I mean, it's totally unsustainable. It's just a cliff. But one of my county commissioners is saying, Rutherford County, we're spending over $6 million a year in property taxes, make up the shortfall in state funding on state prisoners. They pass mandatory sentencing on a lot of offenders that fail to fund that mandatory time they spend in jail because they leave them in the county jail. We either need to relax mandatory sentencing or come up with new funding sources for counties to take care of this issue. I mean, this is a scary issue. The whole thing of corrections is just worrisome. I'm guessing this committee takes it all seriously, but the whole system is unsustainable. When you see all the mental health and addiction, is there a better way we could help folks rather than just housing them in there? Do y'all have any creative solutions?
I think there's some solutions to solving the issue within current funding. I mean, we can definitely talk offline on that, but ultimately, what we see is a lot of funds and federal funds in the past, future, who knows? Grant money is focused on outpatient care or prison systems or those types of things. And I'm really not knocking this, but the first contact that usually a mentally ill person has in your community is with your local officer. And if they commit a crime, it's in your local jail. But there's not many resources related to mental health and mental health treatment or awareness or drug addiction that are going to local jails. There's a lot pumped into prisons and aftercare, but somebody may visit the local jail 15 times and you could have cut them off if you or have provided them the resources to keep them out of prison. But that's my opinion alone. I just see that funding doesn't get addressed to the local jails as much as other places, and that's the first contact usually they have with
Yes,
law
sir.
enforcement.
Is there any state that's doing a great job addressing this?
This is a nationwide issue.
Yes, sir.
I will say, it's a nation. Sometimes it's just about rethinking. I like to hear some of the things I'm hearing coming out of the federal government related to addressing the issue and kind of flipping things on its head and going, let's look at this differently. So there's a lot of promise for me there that we'll start looking at some of these things differently. And instead of, throwing money at something that's obviously a broken plan, now we're starting to flip it on its head and go, okay, where does this need to go?
Yeah. Well, my former jail director that I used to ask him when I was a young county commissioner, I said, what's the silver bullet? What's the key to turning a man's life around or a woman's life around? And he always said, man, it's the Bible, it's the gospel. He said that one thing right there that doesn't cost taxpayers any money has the best return on investment. But thank you for what you do in your department.
All right, thank you. Next on the list, and members, it is 10:53. Want to try to get out of here by 11, so I'm not trying to stop anybody from asking. But just be brief with the questions, be brief with the answers. Thank you. Next on the list, Chair Lady Moody, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, just real quickly, it's got me to thinking about some more facilities in West Tennessee. So at Northwest Correctional in Lake County, do the juvenile facilities there come under your agency?
No, ma'am, that's all Department of Correction.
Okay.
at Northwest.
And I guess the answer is probably the same, but I'll give them a shout out. Our West Tennessee State Penitentiary in Henning, they have the Women's Therapeutic Residential Center there. Is that under your agency?
That's the Department of Correction.
All right. Just some good programs there.
All right, thank you. Chairman Hicks of Washington, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I just want to bring a little bit of good news. Thank you guys for being here. This is about the Northeast Tennessee Regional Recovery Center that is in the Old Roan Mountain facility. And this is through our recovery courts in Northeast Tennessee. There's 9 counties involved. And this is what we're doing with our abatement money and a little bit of money from the state. So I want to give you some numbers on that. In August of 2025, there was 50 men in the residential recovery center and 12 women in the women's facilities. About 60% are fully employed, okay, while they're in the facility. During this time, $54,500 is what they had put into their own savings accounts. They had purchased $32,000 worth of vehicles for whenever they graduate, they can leave with their own car that they bought themselves. 5,000 plus hours of community service, hundreds of certificates earned from a TCAT at the local facility there in Elizabethton, $41,000 paid in fines and fees that they owed to the courts, $12,000 sent home to their families, $7,000 paid in child support, and 3,000 in driver's license reinstatement. Now, that's what you can do whenever you start putting your mind and start putting hard work towards recovery into our jails. It's extremely important that that's the way that we continue. We will look. Currently, I know there's 72 men in the men's facility currently, and there is 12 women still in the women's facility, and we just bought another house to house 6 more. And as of August of 2025, in all of that time, in 2.5 years of this program running, 0 recidivism. That's what you're looking for. Thanks, Chairman.
Thank you. Leader Lamberth, you're recognized.
Well, I hate to transition to this after that uplifting message, and I do support those programs. But I will say, as this committee has been saying for years, it is past time to build a new prison. We have almost, the last numbers I saw were 27% of our state prisoners were being housed in local jails. They do not have the resources to handle high-level dangerous felons. They will house them at our request, but it is way past time to build a new prison and to house some of the most dangerous offenders that the state has ever seen, and to keep the people of the state safe. So that is obviously not something I'm sure that will happen this year, but it's something we have to start thinking about it as we think about these other programs that are fantastic, as two of my fine colleagues have mentioned. But we've just about run out of good programs to try to help people stay out of the prison system. Some of them continue to commit heinous crimes and commit them over and over and over again. Those folks we have to house to save everybody else. And so I just wanted to say that we've looked at it before, but it's time to look at it in earnest, that it's time we build a new prison. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Leader. Members, I have no one else on the list. So, Director, thank you for being here. Thank you for your staff and for answering our questions. Without objection, we will go back into session.
Thank you.
So this does conclude our budget hearings for this morning. We will return at 3:30 p.m. Let me say that again. Everyone, let me have your attention. Let me have your attention. We will be returning at 3:30 for one additional budget hearing by the Department of Transportation. So without further ado, without objection, we stand in recess.